This time, we explore a country on the other side of the globe widely known as the Land of the Rising Sun. We spend 21 days on the main island of Japan and travel Honshu by Shinkansen trains. On our journey, we visit some of the most attractive cities along the trek and take a dive into the culture of this versatile country. Join us on this adventure and experience the beauty of Japan. This is Joyful Japan.
Wollen wir uns da hinstellen schon?
The next day, we continued our travels from Osaka to Hiroshima, the first city that was targeted by a nuclear weapon. On our way to the ferry to Miyajima Island, we unintentionally walked past the ruins of the atomic bomb dome in the center of Hiroshima, the epicenter of the destructive bomb explosion back in August 1945. The Itsukushima Shrine is a UNESCO World Heritage Site in the Setonaikai National Park on the island of Miyajima. Part of it is the famous floating Torii Gate.
Die sind viel gechillter hier als die anderen.
The island Miyajima itself is worshipped by the people as a goddess. The Cetus inland sea, which surrounds the island, is highly affected by the tides. At low tide, you can walk to the Torii Gate sitting in a seabed mud. At high tide, the water reaches up to the temple and fills areas underneath the shrine's boardwalk. The shrine has a number of temples, including Toyokuni Shrine with a 5-storied pagoda. The Itsukushima Shrine dates back to the year 593 and was constructed by Saeki Kuramoto. Visitors stand at the Raisho to purify their mind and body before offering prayers. Of the Itsukushima Shrine invites you to a nice walk through the small neighborhood. Especially at sunset, the mood was very calming and the views were beautiful.
Wasser zurück.
We watched the tide coming back and climbed on top of a mountain nearby to see the sun vanish behind the mountain chain in the distance. It was a 2-hour trip by ferry and bus back to our apartment, so we took the opportunity and returned to the atomic bomb dome in the dark to get a second impression of the area.
Halb 9. Die Leute warten, dass Pachinko aufmacht. Geht doch nichts über ein gutes Frühstück. Onomichi.
Today would lead us a short 1.5-hour train ride away from Hiroshima to a city called Onomichi. Our goal was to ride the Shimanami Kaido, which is a 70-kilometer long bicycle track that crosses the Cetus inland sea from Onomichi City to Imbari City through 6 islands. It's a short ferry cruise to the starting point, so we jumped aboard with some bikes we rented and gathered some last energy for the upcoming ride.
Warum macht es wieder zum Radeln hier?
Mikaido. The islands along the Shima Mikaido are connected by big bridges that all have their separate bicycle lane to keep cyclists away from traffic and close to the beautiful scenery instead. We got a map from the rental shop and mapped out our route to a temple halfway to Mbari city.
Da oben wollen wir hin.
The Kosanji Temple on the island of Ikuchijima belongs to the true Pure Land sect of Japanese Buddhism. It was founded in 1936 and its construction took more than 30 years. Many of the buildings are modeled after famous Japanese temple buildings, such as the Yomaimon Gate.
Ich muss sagen, das ist mit einer der schönsten Tempel, die wir bisher hier gesehen haben, ne? Fünf Grad da drin.
What made this temple different to the other ones was the cave displaying several images and figurines illustrating the tortures of Buddhist hell.
Wie das hier runtergeht, ist ja Wahnsinn. Nie gesehen sowas.
As well as the large structures on top of the hill. An area called Miraishi no Oka or Hill of Hope, which was entirely made of Italian marble. At the peak of the hill is a statue called Tower of Light. The structures are neither a part of the Kosanji nor do they serve any religious purpose, but are rather an artistic design aspect.
Green tea ice cream.
Since it was more than a 30 kilometers ride to where we are now and it was already afternoon, we decided to ride straight to the closest ferry dock in order to catch a ferry back to Onomichi City and use the rest of the day in Hiroshima to see some more of the historical sites. So far, the theory.
Da haben wir unsere Fähre um 10 Minuten verpasst und müssen jetzt 2 Stunden warten. Herzlichen Glückwunsch.
Our ferry arrived 2 hours later and took us back to Onomichi. We took the Shinkansen back to Hiroshima to enjoy delicious Hiroshima-style okonomiyaki at a local restaurant beneath the apartment. After dinner, I went out to further explore the city of Hiroshima in the evening hours, but got stuck at an arcade hall instead. I met two guys from Hannover getting their gaming fix for the night who wanted me to try it myself.
Ich probier das. Wenn Pfeile sind, heißt das nach rechts, dann musst du neben auflegen, den Joystick nach rechts. Okay. Achso, da gedrückt halt, das ist dann.
Watching the locals play their favorite game is just as much fun as playing yourself.
Ich glaube, erstmal anschneiden.
Safety first.
Damit ich nicht rausfalle.
I tried several simulator games myself and finished off our gaming session with some good old Mario Kart. After sunrise, it was already time for us to leave Hiroshima and make our way back to the city of Kyoto, where we wanted to spend several days seeing the sights and attractions. Close to our accommodation was the Kitano Tamango Shrine, a Shinto shrine erected to silence the ghost of the dead poet Sugawara no Mishizane, who was sent to exile by his political opponents. It is a popular destination for those wishing to pray for success in scholarship and studies. Next up was the famous Kinkakuji Temple, or Golden Pavilion, which got its name by the fact that there are layers of gold on the outside of the top floors. Due to the fact that the whole area was pretty overflowed with tourists, we decided to just have a short walk through the premises before leaving back to our guest house.
Haben sie Kirschblüten oben dran gemacht. Diese süßen Gassen sind so geil, ey. Genau.
We got a recommendation for an onsen in the neighborhood, so we walked there to see one of the oldest onsens in Kyoto. It is actually the one which introduced the first electric bath in the 1920s. After a relaxing soak in the baths, we were ready for bed, and so we walked back to our guest house. The Fushimi Inari Shrine is the head shrine of the Kami, who are the spirits, divine beings or holy powers that are honored in the Shinto religion. They can be elements of the landscape, forces of nature, as well as beings and the qualities these beings express. Traditionally, great leaders like the Emperor became Kami. The sights at the shrine are amazing, and several hundred torii gates gifted by people from all over Japan lead the way to the top. For those of you that are into video games, this is the actual shrine where the game Okami has its origin.
Da sind wir angekommen hier.
We enjoyed climbing up the shrine to its top to get a nice view over Kyoto City before we ascended to explore the streets of Kyoto a little further. A short walk from there, we found ourselves in the complex of the Kiyomizu-dera Temple. It was added to the list of World Heritage Sites by UNESCO back in 1994. Founded in 780 on the site of the Ottawa waterfall, its name is translated to Pure Water Temple. The main hall is constructed without using a single nail in the process and houses the primary object of worship, a small statue of the 11-faced, 1,000-armed cannon. We walked on the shopping street leading to the temple and wanted to check out an area called Gion, famous for being a geisha district.
Ja, kann ich mir auch vorstellen.
Diese Schuhe.
But except of Chinese tourists dressed up in geisha outfits, there wasn't much to see. We surely felt our legs from the last days of walking around some of Japan's biggest cities, so we decided to go for the bus this morning, which would bring us all the way to Arashiyama. We wanted to see the monkeys local to the area and the famous bamboo grove. Arriving there, it turned out the monkeys we expected to roam around freely in the bamboo forests were actually showcased in some kind of petting zoo where visitors were able to buy snacks to feed the monkeys. The good thing, this time it's the humans in the cage for their own safety. Approaching monkeys, there are some strict rules to follow, neither to provoke nor frighten them, such as to avoid direct eye contact and abrupt movements. Wasn't really what we intended to see, but they still live freely and were voluntarily gathered at that spot for free food and treats. A troop of over 170 macaque monkeys inhabits the area of Mount Arashiyama. We walked on the promenade in the Arashiyama district to the Bamboo Grove, one of the tourist hotspots in Kyoto. It is a natural forest of bamboo that gives you an otherworldly experience standing between the several meters high bamboo plants.
Weißt du was?
Na klar, das holen. Das sieht halt irgendwie so Metallrohr, ne?
Ja, absolut, stimmt, ja.
The forest is pretty dense at parts and keeps out most of the noise pollution of the surrounding city. We made our way through a beautiful park where again we did find some cherry blossoms, and back at Katsura River we watched some girls having their obviously first attempt at rowing. To sum it up, visiting Arashiyama is a must-do when you're in the area. On our way to the bus station, we found an ice cream dealer advertising his ice cream with several prizes and certificates.
Oh, das beste Eis der Welt, ne?
Wie es aus, ob so ist.
We walked into Shinkyogoku shopping street where we had lunch and stumbled into one of the biggest capsule machine shops we had seen so far.
Wer weiß, was da drin ist. Capsule Station an Capsule Station. Und weil es noch nicht genug sind hier noch ein paar.
Dario found the Star Wars themed one and was curious to find out what he'd get.
Ein Lichtschwert zum Zusammenbauen. Ah, jetzt geht's. Yeah!
We walked further through the shopping street, sucking in the impressions this mass of shops and products provided. Dario had been exploring some parts of the city on his own and recommended a place called Nijo Castle, which was supposed to host a Sakura festival. So we walked on past the Higashi Honganji temple, which unfortunately was already closed up by the time we were there, and caught a bus to the castle. The castle itself was decorated with the Sakura theme all over and had a little light show performance going on. Further walking through the castle, we had to admit that the cherry blossoms were not really in full bloom over here in Kyoto.
Hello.
Dario bought some seasonal local sake and we left Nijo Castle longing for our beds after an interesting and impressive day. The next morning, it was time for us to travel on to our next destination, deep in the Yamanashi prefecture, a town called Fujikawaguchiko at the base of Mount Fuji. We had reserved a room not far from the nearby lake Kawaguchiko and checked into our hotel, which turned out to be a recording studio at the same time.
Wieder ein traditionelles japanisches Zimmer.
The room was pretty basic, but we already got used to the standard on our budget and took it as part of the adventure. After refreshing in the hotel, we couldn't wait any longer to go out and see the beautiful Mount Fuji that had accompanied us on almost every Shinkansen ride along our travels in the last 2 weeks. At its base, at Lake Kawaguchiko, you have a beautiful view on Mount Fuji and can see the volcano in its full beauty. We walked around the lake and slowly watched the sun descend.
Das Hotel hat über 100 Zimmer. Und hier ist keine Sau außer uns. So geil. Bisschen unheimlich schon. Mount Fuji am Morgen.
Today's plan was supposed to be one of Darius' highlights on the entire trip, a thing he had already talked about in Germany years ago and a priority I should have in mind while planning the whole thing. The Aokigahara forest.
Ich habe mich verlaufen.
Due to its density and earthquake-shaped soil and root structures, it also goes by the name Sea of Forest. The area spreads out around 30 square kilometers and was created by the last major eruption of Mount Fuji some 1200 years ago. It has been used as a movie set for a lot of international horror and ghost stories and even inspired the video game. In Japanese mythology, demons and angry spirits are associated with the forest, and its almost complete absence of wildlife gives the visit an undeniably eerie vibe. The metallic lava rocks make orientation in the forest hard, since GPS and navigational instruments are influenced by magnetic anomalies. Sadly, the forest is the most popular suicide spot in all of Japan. It also ranks as second in the world after San Francisco's Golden Gate Bridge. Signs around the forest try to persuade people not to take their own lives. We finished our hike at dawn and made our way back to the hotel, grabbing some microwave food at the 7-Eleven store. Waking up to a clear blue sky and sunshine, we decided to go for the Fuji Loop tour, which would bring us to the highest accessible viewpoint without actually having to climb. But honestly, it felt more like a tourist trap and was a little overpriced for what it actually offered. But hindsight is easier than foresight, isn't it? On our way to Fujikawaguchiko, we drove past an amusement park located in the town's outskirts that I wanted to take a closer look at.
Da ganz hinten sind die Fuji Q Highlands.
To explore another grocery store just to be baffled by the product variety and sizes offered.
Das ist so meine Größe hier. What the fuck? Ein Tank ist es. So viele Instant-Nudeln. Das ist der Shit, das Zeug.
I bought some delicious fried chicken skewers and went back to meet with Dario to get our laundry done before we would leave the Mount Fuji area back to Tokyo the next morning. It was the only time we had to buy a separate ticket to get back into the JR train system. We shared the seats with some bleary-eyed Japanese youths trying to make up for the sleep missed last night. The plan for the night was to go separate ways for an evening, so everyone could do what he actually likes. So we split up and I went all in for a crazy night in Tokyo's bars. I started off in Shinjuku looking for another music bar I found on the internet, but ended up getting completely lost in a red light district, fleeing to the closest train station to drive to another district just to get lost again and unintentionally drive back to the place I'd already been before. Looking back, this was one of the craziest evenings of the whole trip. Thanks to the portable Wi-Fi nowadays, I found my way back home and safely went to bed short after midnight. The next day, we intended to do some souvenir shopping for our loved ones.
Hier nochmal das Shoryuken.
Was?
Wie ging das Shoryuken nochmal?
Hinten vorne Kreis. Alles Gundams. Das ist der Wahnsinn.
We walked through the district of Akihabara and came into conversation with a couple from Russia. They recommended visiting Yoyogi Park to see the sakura in its full bloom. The sakura season, which only lasts for 2 weeks around the end of March, marks the beginning of spring in the Japanese calendar. It is a special time for Japanese people to come together and celebrate. A common thing locals like to do is having a picnic with their relatives in the beautiful parks of their city and sit underneath the cherry trees. We took a stroll through the crowds before we went on to a shop I had found last night and imagined to be of interest for Dario. What this shop offered was a mixture of craftsmanship and art. Affectionately assembled dolls and samurai armor replicas worth several thousands of euros were displayed in the store.
Ich würde so reiern bei dem Ding, ey. Das ist überhaupt nichts.
We continued exploring and visited the Tokyo Dome City. It is an amusement park built around the baseball stadium in the middle of the city. Tenants are the Yomiuri Giants.
Niemand mehr die Neuen, das war mein Ziel.
The location is also used for several other events, such as American football, mixed martial arts or music concerts.
Ja, hier sieht man so ein bisschen das Ausmaß.
After Tokyo Dome City, we drove back to Shibuya to see the statue of Hachiko. Hachiko was an Akita dog remembered for his remarkable loyalty to his owner Hidesaburo Ueno, for whom we continued to wait for over 9 years at Shibuya Station after Ueno's death. We gave Shimo Kitazawa a second chance to convince us of being an interesting area and spent the rest of our afternoon there.
Die stellen sich für alles. Wahnsinn.
Following our excursion to Shimokitazawa, I had an enhancing conversation with a guy working at the reception desk in our hotel. We agreed to meet up the next day, where he was willing to show me some parts of the city. But before that, I found myself in the madness of Akihabara, where a life-size UFO catcher was set up. No questions asked. The guy from the hotel, named Reiji, determined Shinjuku to be our meeting spot. I arrived there a little early and took another look at the Onsen we had already visited at the beginning of our trip. Onsen roughly translates as memory lane. Most of the tiny restaurants offer space for only 4 to 5 customers at a time, which makes contact with your table mates inevitable. It started out as a black market close to Shinjuku station, but has nowadays become a properly licensed restaurant area. Reiji took me to Harajuku, a place with a lot of record stores and fashion shops. The area is also famous for its street art scene and cosplay shops. Since I was still looking for a special souvenir, my new Japanese friend tried to help me to find a shop offering it. The Japanese in general are very polite people, and Reiji is no different. So he insisted on inviting me as a guest in his home country for dinner in a traditional Japanese kushikatsu restaurant. Kushikatsu are deep-fried vegetable and meat skewers you're only allowed to dip into a special sauce once. We said goodbye to each other after a nice afternoon hanging around in the streets of Tokyo, promising that we'd stay in contact after I had returned home. Dario and I enjoyed the last Japanese curry later that evening, before we had to take our plane back to Germany the next day. We leave this country with a lot of beautiful memories of the way people live and laugh in Japan. Arigato gozaimasu, Nihon.